Have you ever walked into a room and felt an uneasiness you couldn't quite explain? Have you ever had a conversation where the words were polite, but something in the tone, something in the way the other person looked at you felt off? We live in a world where people often wear masks, disguising their true feelings behind a smile, a handshake, or even an encouraging word. And while love, grace, and kindness should always be our foundation, discernment is equally important. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 27:6 that wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. That means not everyone who smiles at you is for you. Not everyone who compliments you has your best interest at heart. And not everyone in your circle is truly in your corner. There are times when people harbor resentment, bitterness, or even hatred toward you. And they won't always come right out and say it. Instead, they'll hide it in their actions, their attitudes, and their subtle behaviors. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, but as believers, shouldn't we always assume the best? Absolutely. But assuming the best doesn't mean ignoring reality. Jesus himself was deeply aware of the hearts of those around him. He knew who was for him and who was against him. He discerned the intentions of the Pharisees, the betrayal of Judas, and even the doubts of those closest to him. If Jesus paid attention to the signs, shouldn't we? The enemy would love for us to be blindsided by hidden animosity. He would love for us to ignore the warning signs and get entangled in relationships that drain our joy, steal our peace, and pull us away from our purpose. But we serve a God who gives wisdom to those who ask. And today, I want to help you recognize 6 key warning signs that someone secretly harbors hatred toward you. Because when you recognize it, you can address it with wisdom, set boundaries where needed, and most importantly, respond in a way that honors God. There's something unsettling about a compliment that doesn't quite feel like one. It's the kind of praise that leaves you questioning whether you were just honored or subtly insulted. It often comes wrapped in a smile, delivered in a tone that sounds friendly enough. But something about it lingers in your mind, making you wonder, was that a compliment or a dig? This is one of the most common and subtle ways that hidden resentment reveals itself, through backhanded compliments. It's when someone appears to be praising you, but if you listen closely, there's an undertone of criticism or condescension. These statements are designed to sound polite, but their real purpose is to undermine you. The words may be coated in sugar, but beneath them is a bitter aftertaste. You get a new job and someone says, "Wow, I didn't think they were hiring people with your level of experience." You work hard to lose weight and they comment, "You look great, I almost didn't recognize you." You give a powerful speech and they respond with, "That was really good, way better than I expected." Each of these statements pretends to be encouragement, but in reality, they carry hidden jabs. Backhanded compliments are a clear indication that someone may be harboring resentment or even dislike towards you. The reason they don't just come out and say how they truly feel is that they want to maintain a certain image. They don't want to be seen as rude or confrontational, so they disguise their hostility in carefully crafted words. It's a passive-aggressive way of expressing jealousy, insecurity, or unresolved bitterness. One of the reasons this behavior can be so difficult to recognize is because it plays on your natural tendency to assume the best in people. You may find yourself second-guessing your reaction. Did they really mean that in a negative way? Or am I just being too sensitive? You replay the words in your mind, analyzing the tone, the facial expression, the slight smirk or raised eyebrow that accompanied them. The ambiguity is intentional. It's meant to leave you feeling unsettled, doubting whether you should even address it. But discernment will tell you that words have weight. People reveal their true feelings not only through what they say, but how they say it. A person who genuinely supports you will compliment you without strings attached. Their words will uplift, not undermine. When someone repeatedly gives you compliments that feel more like veiled criticism, it's a strong sign that their kindness isn't genuine. Another thing to pay attention to is consistency. A single offhanded remark might be accidental, but when someone consistently frames their compliments in a way that diminishes you, there's something deeper going on. They may see you as a threat, or they may struggle with their own self-worth, making it difficult for them to celebrate others sincerely. Instead of confronting their feelings honestly, they use subtle jabs to bring you down while maintaining the appearance of friendliness. This type of behavior is especially common in competitive environments, workplaces, social circles, even family. You accomplish something meaningful, and instead of receiving wholehearted support, you get a compliment that feels like it comes with a side of envy. It's as if they can't fully acknowledge your success without adding a little reminder that they're not entirely happy about it. Some people use backhanded compliments as a form of control. They want to keep you questioning yourself, unsure where you stand with them. If they can make you feel slightly insecure or off balance, they gain a sense of superiority. They may even enjoy watching you over-explain or laugh nervously, trying to convince yourself that what they said was well intended. When you start noticing this pattern, it's important not to dismiss it. Pay attention to how you feel when you interact with this person. If you frequently walk away feeling confused, frustrated, or belittled, those emotions are trying to tell you something. The words people speak over your life should bring clarity and encouragement, not uncertainty and doubt. Sometimes backhanded compliments come from people who are struggling with their own internal battles. Their resentment toward you may not even be about you. It may be about their own disappointments, their own feelings of inadequacy. But just because you understand where it's coming from doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. Recognizing the signs allows you to handle the situation with wisdom, guarding your heart while navigating relationships with discernment. Criticism is a natural part of life. Sometimes it's constructive, coming from those who genuinely care and want to see us grow. Other times it's meant to tear down, to highlight flaws, rather than help fix them. There's a stark difference between the two, and one of the clearest signs that someone harbors hidden resentment toward you is when their criticism is excessive, unfair, or unnecessary. A person who secretly dislikes you won't always express their feelings outright. Instead, they will find subtle ways to undermine your confidence and question your abilities. One of the ways they do this is by constantly pointing out what they perceive as your weaknesses, often in moments when you should be celebrated. No matter how much effort you put into something, they always find a flaw. If you accomplish a major goal, they won't acknowledge the success. Instead, they'll focus on what could have been done better. You get a promotion at work, and rather than congratulating you, they say, well, I guess they were just desperate to fill the position. You cook a meal, and instead of enjoying it, they remark, it's good, but it could use a little more seasoning. You wear a new outfit and they comment, that color is nice, but it's not really your best. It's not that they are offering feedback in a way that helps. It's that they are consistently finding something negative to say, no matter the circumstance. This kind of excessive criticism is often disguised as honesty. The person might claim that they are just telling you the truth or that they have high standards, but the reality is that their words are laced with an undercurrent of resentment. It's not about helping you improve. It's about making sure you never feel fully confident in yourself. People who engage in this behavior often do so because of their own insecurities. Seeing you succeed, grow, or even just be happy makes them uncomfortable. Rather than dealing with their emotions in a healthy way, they project their negativity onto you. They may not be aware of it themselves, but their need to constantly critique you is a reflection of something deeper happening within them. One of the most telling aspects of this type of criticism is the way it is delivered. There is a difference between someone giving thoughtful, kind, and constructive feedback versus someone who takes every opportunity to diminish what you've done. A person who truly cares about you will offer correction in a way that builds you up. They will consider your feelings and the timing of their words. But a person who secretly resents you will often make their criticism public, using it as a way to subtly embarrass or humiliate you. They may make jokes at your expense or offer their honest opinion in front of others, ensuring that you feel small and exposed. This type of behavior can be particularly harmful in close relationships, friendships, workplaces, even family dynamics. When someone you are supposed to trust constantly criticizes you, it creates an emotional weight that can be difficult to carry. Over time, you may begin to internalize their words, questioning yourself in ways you never did before. You might find yourself hesitating before making decisions, wondering if they will have something negative to say. This is how excessive criticism takes root. It slowly erodes confidence, making you feel like no matter what you do, it will never be enough. Another important sign to look for is whether the criticism is one-sided, A healthy relationship allows space for mutual feedback, where both people can share thoughts and grow together. But when someone is always pointing out your mistakes, yet becomes defensive or dismissive when their own flaws are mentioned, that's a sign of an imbalanced dynamic. They want to critique, but they don't want to be critiqued. They want to highlight your shortcomings, but they refuse to acknowledge their own. This kind of excessive criticism can also take the form of dismissing your efforts entirely. Rather than pointing out flaws, they may act as if your hard work wasn't that impressive to begin with. You accomplish something meaningful, and their response is lukewarm. They shrug, nod, and move on as if it was nothing. Their lack of enthusiasm is another way of minimizing your success, making sure that you don't feel too confident or proud of yourself. These small but consistent patterns of criticism reveal more than just opinions. They reveal the true posture of a person's heart. While some people express their dislike through direct confrontation, others prefer to use words that chip away at confidence over time. Recognizing the difference between helpful feedback and harmful critique is key to understanding the deeper motives behind a person's words. Support is one of the clearest ways to measure the strength of a relationship. When someone truly cares about you, they celebrate your victory, stand by you in tough times, and encourage you to keep moving forward. But when a person secretly harbors resentment toward you, their lack of genuine support becomes evident in ways that may not always be obvious at first. It's not just about what they say, it's about what they don't. But it's not just about what they do, it's about what they refuse to do. A person who secretly dislikes you will often struggle to be happy for you. They may smile and nod when you share good news, but their reaction lacks real enthusiasm. While others are genuinely excited, clapping and cheering for your success, they offer only a half-hearted, that's nice, or a disinterested, good for you. Their tone is flat, their energy is low, and their words feel empty. It's as if your happiness is an inconvenience to them, something they have to tolerate rather than celebrate. Sometimes their lack of support comes in the form of silence. When something great happens in your life, they don't acknowledge it at all. They see the news, they hear about it, but they choose not to say anything. They scroll past your achievements on social media without so much as a like or a comment. They pretend they didn't hear you when you excitedly share what you've been working toward. They avoid bringing it up in conversation, hoping you won't notice their indifference. But you do notice. You notice because support isn't just about grand gestures. It's about the little things. A kind word, a congratulatory text, a pat on the back. When someone intentionally withholds those things, it speaks volume. Their silence isn't an accident, it's a choice. A choice not to acknowledge you, not to encourage you, not to give you the affirmation that they so freely offer to others. Another sign of a lack of genuine support is when a person downplays your accomplishments. Instead of celebrating what you've achieved, they find a way to make it seem smaller than it is. You work hard for something, and instead of saying, that's amazing, they say, well, it's not that big of a deal. You reach a milestone, and rather than cheering you on, they remind you of how much further you have to go. They always seem to find a way to shift the focus away from your success and onto something else, usually something that makes them feel better about themselves. This kind of behavior is often rooted in jealousy or insecurity. People who struggle with their own self-worth may find it difficult to be happy for others. Your success reminds them of what they haven't accomplished. And rather than confronting their own feelings, they choose to dismiss yours. Instead of dealing with their envy, they pretend that what you've done isn't impressive. Instead of celebrating with you, they pull away, distancing themselves emotionally as if your achievement somehow threatens them. Another way this lack of support manifests is through subtle discouragement. Whenever you set out to do something new, they are quick to point out all the reasons it might not work. Rather than cheering you on, they feed you doubt. You mention a new idea and they respond with, are you sure that's a good idea? You tell them about an opportunity and they say, I don't know if you're really ready for that. Instead of lifting you up, they plant seeds of uncertainty, making you question whether you should even try. In some cases, their lack of support takes the form of passive-aggressive competition. Instead of celebrating your wins, they immediately try to outdo them. You share good news, and rather than acknowledging it, they shift the focus to themselves. You say, I just got a promotion, and they respond, oh, that reminds me, I just got an even bigger raise. You say, I finished my first marathon, and they counter with, that's great, I'm actually training for an ultra marathon now. No matter what you accomplish, they always have something lined up that makes them look better. This behavior reveals that their issue isn't with what you've achieved, it's with how it makes them feel. Your success challenges their sense of importance. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Rather than being inspired by what you've done, they feel threatened by it. And their response is to minimize, dismiss, or compete with you in an attempt to regain control. Sometimes this lack of support is even more direct. They actively discourage others from supporting you as well. They make subtle negative remarks about you behind your back. They try to turn mutual friends or colleagues against you by downplaying your abilities or questioning your worth. They don't just withhold encouragement from you, they influence others to do the same. This is one of the most damaging forms of hidden resentment, because it doesn't just affect your relationship with them, it affects how others perceive you as well. A person's true feelings are often revealed in how they respond to your success. When someone genuinely cares about you, they don't just support you when it's convenient or when it benefits them. They celebrate with you wholeheartedly, without hesitation, without envy, and without hidden motives. But when someone secretly resents you, their lack of genuine support will show itself in 100 small ways, whether through silence, dismissal, competition, or subtle discouragement. Passive-aggressive behavior is one of the most subtle yet revealing signs that someone secretly harbors negative feelings toward you. Unlike open hostility, which is easy to identify, passive aggression is cloaked in sarcasm, subtle jabs, and behaviors that create confusion rather than confrontation. It is a way for someone to express resentment, jealousy, or dislike without directly addressing the issue. Because of its indirect nature, it can leave you feeling unsettled, wondering if you are imagining things or reading too much into situations. One of the most common forms of passive-aggressive behavior is sarcasm disguised as humor. The person makes jokes at your expense, laughing as they deliver remarks that don't quite feel like jokes. They might say things like, oh, look who decided to show up on time for once, or wow, you actually did a good job. Miracles do happen. On the surface, these comments are meant to be funny, but there is an undercurrent of criticism or belittlement behind them. When you react, they quickly dismiss it by saying, I was just joking. Don't take it so seriously. This allows them to insult you while maintaining a sense of plausible deniability. Another clear sign of passive-aggressive behavior is intentional procrastination or withholding effort when you need their help. If you work with this person or rely on them for something, they may deliberately take longer than necessary to complete a task, make excuses for not following through, or suddenly become unavailable when you need them most. They won't openly refuse to help, but their actions will make it clear that they don't want to contribute. They may claim to be overwhelmed, conveniently forget what they promised, or find ways to delay progress. This silent resistance is a way of expressing frustration or resentment without directly confronting the issue. Subtle backhanded compliments are another key sign of passive-aggressive behavior. Rather than outright expressing their true feelings, they choose words that sound like praise, but are actually meant to undermine you. They might say things like, you're so lucky, everything always works out for you, implying that your success is based on chance rather than effort. Or they might say, I could never be as bold as you are with your fashion choices, leaving you unsure whether they admire you or are criticizing you. These statements create doubt and make it difficult to address the underlying negativity. Nonverbal cues also play a significant role in passive-aggressive behavior. Eye rolls, exaggerated sighs, crossed arms, or forced smiles can reveal their true feelings even when their words do not. They may pretend to be engaged in conversation, but their body language says otherwise. They might deliberately avoid eye contact, respond with short, clipped answers, or act distracted whenever you speak. These subtle actions communicate their irritation or disapproval without them having to say anything outright. Another way passive aggression manifests is through deliberate exclusion. This person may go out of their way to leave you out of conversations, group activities, or important decisions. They might make plans with mutual friends and forget to invite you, or they might discuss things in front of you that they know you weren't included in. The goal is to make you feel unimportant or unwanted without directly addressing any issues they have with you. If you bring it up, they might act surprised and say, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be interested," or "It wasn't intentional, I just assumed you were busy." This calculated avoidance is meant to send a message without creating a confrontation. Passive-aggressive behavior can also show up in the form of subtle sabotage. If this person has the opportunity to support you, whether at work, in friendships, or in social settings, they may choose instead to undermine you in small but impactful ways. They might fail to pass along important information, conveniently misplace something you need, or offer advice that steers you in the wrong direction. It's never obvious enough to call out directly, but over time, these small actions add up, creating obstacles in your path that shouldn't be there. One of the most frustrating aspects of dealing with passive-aggressive behavior is that it leaves you feeling powerless. Because it is indirect, it is difficult to address head-on. If you call it out, the person can easily deny any ill intent, making you feel as though you are overreacting. This dynamic creates an emotional tug-of-war where you are constantly questioning whether you are imagining things or if the negativity is real. The unpredictability of passive-aggressive behavior can also be emotionally exhausting. One moment the person may seem perfectly pleasant and the next they are cold or dismissive. This inconsistency keeps you off balance, making it difficult to know where you truly stand with them. People who engage in passive-aggressive behavior often do so because they are unwilling or unable to express their true feelings directly. They may feel resentment, jealousy, or anger, but instead of addressing it openly, they choose to express it in a way that is less confrontational. This allows them to maintain a level of social acceptability while still communicating their discontent. However, this approach only leads to further confusion, tension, and frustration in relationships. When someone secretly dislikes you, one of the most telling signs is their habit of making you feel like an outsider. They may not openly exclude you in obvious ways, but their actions, words, and behavior create an undeniable sense that you are not truly welcome. This subtle form of exclusion can be especially damaging because it makes you question your own perceptions. You might start wondering if you're imagining things, if you're overreacting, or if it's just a coincidence. But over time, patterns emerge, revealing the truth about how this person really feels. One of the most common ways this plays out is through social exclusion. You notice that this person includes others in conversations, invitations, and plans, but somehow you are always left out. You find out about events after they've already happened, or you see pictures on social media of gatherings that you weren't even aware of. When you ask about it, they act surprised and say, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be interested," or "It was a last-minute thing." The exclusion is subtle enough that you can't directly call it out, but consistent enough that you feel the sting of being left out. In group settings, they may downplay your presence by talking over you, ignoring your input, or making inside jokes with others while leaving you out of the conversation. They create an invisible barrier that separates you from the rest of the group. When you speak, they don't engage with your words the way they do with others. They give brief, dismissive responses or shift the focus to someone else. Their body language also reflects their disinterest. They may avoid eye contact, turn their body away from you, or position themselves in a way that physically excludes you from the group dynamic. Another way this exclusion manifests is through a lack of acknowledgement. When you achieve something significant, they are silent. While others congratulate you, encourage you, or celebrate with you, they act as if nothing happened. If they do acknowledge your achievement, it's with a lukewarm response, something minimal that lacks enthusiasm. They may say, "Oh, I heard about that. Cool," and immediately change the subject. Their lack of genuine happiness for you is a clear indicator that they do not truly support or value you. Sometimes exclusion takes the form of minimizing your contributions. If you work with this person, they may overlook your ideas, dismiss your suggestions, or take credit for things you've done. In meetings or collaborative settings, they fail to recognize your efforts, making it seem as though you weren't an essential part of the process. They may highlight the contributions of others while leaving your name out of the conversation. This behavior is meant to make you feel insignificant, as if your presence and input don't truly matter. They may also exclude you in more subtle, emotional ways. When you share something personal, they don't offer the same level of engagement that they do with others. If you open up about a challenge or struggle, their response is distant or indifferent. They don't ask follow-up questions, express concern, or offer support. Instead, they quickly move on or respond in a way that minimizes your feelings. This emotional detachment makes it clear that they don't see you as someone they genuinely care about. A particularly harmful form of exclusion is when they actively create distance between you and others. They may subtly influence mutual friends or colleagues by making negative or dismissive remarks about you. They might roll their eyes when you speak, make sarcastic comments about you, or downplay your achievements in front of others. These small actions may not seem significant on their own, but over time, they create an atmosphere where others begin to see you differently. They are quietly shaping the way people perceive you, ensuring that you remain on the outside. Another way this behavior shows up is through selective kindness. They are warm, friendly, and engaging with others. But when it comes to you, their energy shifts. They may offer compliments to everyone else in the group except you. They may greet others with excitement, but barely acknowledge your presence. They may show interest in what others are doing, but have no curiosity about your life or experiences. This contrast in behavior makes their true feelings evident. They are choosing to exclude you, even if they never say it outright. In some cases, they may pretend to be inclusive while subtly making you feel like you don't belong. They invite you to things, but fail to make you feel welcome when you arrive. They include you in conversations, but ensure that you are not an active participant. They give you just enough interaction to avoid outright rudeness, but not enough to make you feel like you are truly part of the group. This calculated approach keeps you in a state of uncertainty, wondering if you're actually unwanted or if you're just imagining things. This kind of exclusion can take an emotional toll, leaving you feeling isolated and undervalued. Over time, you may start withdrawing from the relationship or questioning your own worth. The key thing to recognize is that exclusion, whether subtle or overt, is never accidental. It is a choice, a reflection of how someone truly feels about you. It's not always about something you did or didn't do. Sometimes it's simply a sign that the other person does not see you as someone they want to include in their world. A person who secretly dislikes you will often find ways to belittle you, whether through direct criticism, subtle put-downs, or a pattern of making you feel inferior. Their words and actions may not always be openly hostile, but they carry an underlying tone of condescension, dismissiveness, or disapproval. Over time, these consistent negative interactions can chip away at your confidence, making you second-guess yourself and wonder if there is truth in what they are saying. One of the most common ways this manifests is through constant criticism. No matter what you do, they always have something negative to say. If you accomplish something, they point out what you could have done better. If you share an idea, they dismiss it as unoriginal or impractical. If you wear something new, they make a comment about how it's not really their style. Their feedback is never constructive. It's designed to undermine you, not help you grow. Instead of offering encouragement or support, they highlight flaws and weaknesses, making sure you never feel fully confident in yourself. Sometimes, their belittling comes in the form of comparing you to others. They may frequently mention how someone else is better at something than you are. They might say, "You did okay, but honestly, I think Sarah's version was a little more polished." Or, "You're making progress, but you should see how quickly James picked it up." These comparisons are meant to make you feel inadequate, as if no matter how hard you try, you will never measure up to the people they deem superior. Their dismissiveness can also show up in conversation. When you speak, they act as if your words don't carry much weight. They may interrupt you, talk over you, or give short, uninterested responses. If you share an accomplishment or something important to you, they barely acknowledge it before moving on to a different topic. They may even roll their eyes, sigh, or smirk when you speak, all nonverbal cues that signal a lack of respect for what you have to say. These subtle behaviors communicate that in their eyes, your thoughts and experiences don't matter as much as those of others. In group settings, they may mock you in ways that feel just a little too personal. They make jokes at your expense, disguising their insults as humor. If you express discomfort, they dismiss it by saying, "Oh, come on, I'm just messing with you," or "You're too sensitive." They use laughter as a shield, making it difficult for you to call out their behavior without looking like you can't take a joke. But deep down, you know the difference between playful teasing and comments meant to diminish your worth. Another way they belittle you is by questioning your abilities and decisions. If you make a choice, they subtly suggest that it wasn't the best one. If you take on a new challenge, they imply that you may not be ready for it. They may phrase it as concern, saying things like, "Are you sure you want to do that? It seems a little out of your league." Or, "I don't want to discourage you, but I just don't see this working out for you." Their words plant seeds of doubt, making you second guess your own instincts and abilities. Their condescension often extends to the way they offer advice. Rather than genuinely helping you, their words carry an air of superiority, as if they believe you are incapable of figuring things out on your own. They speak to you in a way that feels patronizing, as if they are explaining something to a child. Even when you are just as knowledgeable or experienced as they are, they act as if they need to educate you, always positioning themselves as the more competent or insightful one in the conversation. Sometimes their belittling takes the form of ignoring your successes altogether. While they are quick to notice and point out your mistakes, they rarely, if ever, acknowledge what you've done well. When you achieve something significant, they downplay it or act as if it's not a big deal. If others congratulate you, they may remain silent or find a way to shift the attention elsewhere. Their refusal to recognize your growth and accomplishments is a passive way of expressing their resentment, ensuring that you never feel fully validated. Another subtle but powerful way they belittle you is by treating your concerns as unimportant. If you express frustration, they brush it off as if you're overreacting. If you share something personal, they don't show empathy or engagement. They may even say things like, "That's not a big deal," or "You're making too much of this." The reaction makes you feel as if your feelings are insignificant, as if your experiences are not worth acknowledging. Over time, their belittling behavior can create an imbalance in the relationship. You may find yourself constantly trying to prove your worth, seeking their approval, even when they have never given you a reason to expect it. Their subtle and overt put-downs work to erode your confidence, making you feel as if you are always falling short. Instead of building you up, they take every opportunity to make you feel smaller, less capable, and less deserving of recognition. A person who secretly dislikes you will often find ways to belittle you, whether through direct criticism, subtle put-downs, or a pattern of making you feel inferior. Their words and actions may not always be openly hostile, but they carry an underlying tone of condescension, dismissiveness, or disapproval. Over time, these consistent negative interactions can chip away at your confidence, making you second guess yourself and wonder if there is truth in what they are saying. One of the most common ways this manifests is through constant criticism. No matter what you do, they always have something negative to say. If you accomplish something, they point out what you could have done better. If you share an idea, they dismiss it as unoriginal or impractical. If you wear something new, they make a comment about how it's not really their style. Their feedback is never constructive. It's designed to undermine you, not help you grow. Instead of offering encouragement or support, they highlight flaws and weaknesses, making sure you never feel fully confident in yourself. Sometimes their belittling comes in the form of comparing you to others. They may frequently mention how someone else is better at something than you are. They might say, "You did okay, but honestly, I think Sarah's version was a little more polished." Or, "You're making progress, but you should see how quickly James picked it up." These comparisons are meant to make you feel inadequate, as if no matter how hard you try, you will never measure up to the people they deem superior. Their dismissiveness can also show up in conversation. When you speak, they act as if your words don't carry much weight. They may interrupt you, talk over you, or give short, uninterested responses. If you share an accomplishment or something important to you, they barely acknowledge it before moving on to a different topic. They may even roll their eyes, sigh, or smirk when you speak, all nonverbal cues that signal a lack of respect for what you have to say. These subtle behaviors communicate that in their eyes, your thoughts and experiences don't matter as much as those of others. In group settings, they may mock you in ways that feel just a little too personal. They make jokes at your expense, disguising their insults as humor. If you express discomfort, they dismiss it by saying, "Oh, come on, I'm just messing with you," or "You're too sensitive." They use laughter as a shield, making it difficult for you to call out their behavior without looking like you can't take a joke. But deep down, you know the difference between playful teasing and comments meant to diminish your worth. Another way they belittle you is by questioning your abilities and decisions. If you make a choice, they subtly suggest that it wasn't the best one. If you take on a new challenge, they imply that you may not be ready for it. They may phrase it as concern, saying things like, "Are you sure you want to do that? It seems a little out of your league," or "I don't want to discourage you, but I just don't see this working out for you." Their words plant seeds of doubt, making you second guess your own instincts and abilities. Their condescension often extends to the way they offer advice. Rather than genuinely helping you, their words carry an air of superiority, as if they believe you are incapable of figuring things out on your own. They speak to you in a way that feels patronizing, as if they are explaining something to a child. Even when you are just as knowledgeable or experienced as they are, they act as if they need to educate you, always positioning themselves as the more competent or insightful one in the conversation. Sometimes, their belittling takes the form of ignoring your successes altogether. While they are quick to notice and point out your mistakes, they rarely, if ever, acknowledge what you've done well. When you achieve something significant, they downplay it or act as if it's not a big deal. If others congratulate you, they may remain silent or find a way to shift the attention elsewhere. Their refusal to recognize your growth and accomplishments is a passive way of expressing their resentment, ensuring that you never feel fully validated. Another subtle but powerful way they belittle you is by treating your concerns as unimportant. If you express frustration, they brush it off as if you're overreacting. If you share something personal, they don't show empathy or engagement. They may even say things like, "That's not a big deal," or "You're making too much of this." Their reaction makes you feel as if your feelings are insignificant, as if your experiences are not worth acknowledging. Over time, their belittling behavior can create an imbalance in the relationship. You may find yourself constantly trying to prove your worth, seeking their approval, even when they have never given you a reason to expect it. Their subtle and overt put-downs work to erode your confidence, making you feel as if you are always falling short. Instead of building you up, they take every opportunity to make you feel smaller, less capable, and less deserving of recognition.